Conflict is ever present in life, from personal relationships to major societal disputes. But what makes some conflicts easy to resolve, while others drag on endlessly, even destroying relationships? Is the problem with the other party, or is it in the way we respond? Stoic philosophy teaches that conflict does not stem from external circumstances, but from our emotions, egos, and inner fears. If you want to understand the deep-rooted causes of unresolved conflicts, and more importantly, learn how to master yourself to resolve them with strength and reason, watch this video. The principles from great philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus can completely change the way you face every conflict in life. If you're new to my channel, don't hesitate to hit the subscribe button and like the video to receive more awesome content. Conflicts become irresolvable when people allow emotions to overpower reason, clouding their ability to assess situations objectively. When emotions take control, especially anger, hurt, or fear, individuals tend to react impulsively rather than calmly facing the actual issue. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This means that emotions don't arise from objective reality, but from how we interpret it. Failing to control emotions turns conflict into a battle of egos, where the goal of resolving the issue is replaced by the need to protect oneself and punish the other party. Especially in close relationships, intense emotions can push individuals into defensive or aggressive stances. When confronted with criticism, we often react immediately without considering whether the comment was malicious or simply constructive feedback. An emotional outburst transforms a dialogue into a confrontation, leaving both parties stuck in resentment and forgetting the root cause of the issue. The Stoic philosophy does not deny emotions but emphasizes that individuals must learn to master them. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and distinguished Stoic philosopher, once wrote, "If you are disturbed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your assessment of it. And you have the power to change your assessment." Anger is not evidence of injustice, but a reaction of the mind to an issue that hasn't been thoroughly analyzed. Fear doesn't prove danger, but rather a lack of understanding or an exaggeration in the mind. When emotions take control, individuals lose the ability to reflect and see the issue from an objective perspective. A lack of emotional control also leads people to interpret situations more negatively than they truly are. A constructive criticism may be perceived as a personal attack, and a simple disagreement might be seen as betrayal. This escalates conflicts unnecessarily, with potential solutions being obscured by personal hurt. Negative emotions can be likened to a fire. If left unchecked, they will burn through reason and obscure the truth. Seneca, another Stoic philosopher, once advised, "Anger is like a storm. If you let it sweep you away, you lose control of yourself." This shows that emotional control does not mean suppressing or denying emotions. On the contrary, it involves observing them with clarity, recognizing the emotions, and placing them in the proper context. When a strong emotion arises, instead of reacting immediately, create a pause for reason. Take a deep breath, step back, and ask yourself, what is really happening here? Is this the truth, or simply a reaction of the mind? Emotional control is a skill that needs to be developed, not an innate quality. Effective practices include journaling emotions, meditation, and mindfulness. These exercises help individuals cultivate the habit of observing emotions from an objective standpoint, separating them from actual behavior. A person with good emotional control is someone not manipulated by emotions, but uses them as a tool to understand themselves better. Emotional control is not only a key factor in resolving conflicts, but also a manifestation of inner strength. A person who masters their emotions is not easily provoked and doesn't allow external circumstances to disturb their inner calm. Ultimately, emotional control is the foundation of reason. If we let emotions dominate, we cannot make wise decisions. Conflicts can only be resolved when individuals are calm enough to face the reality, to view the issue through the lens of reason rather than blind anger. Stoic philosophy reminds us, master the mind, or it will master you. Ego is one of the greatest barriers that make conflicts irreconcilable. When people become too attached to their personal opinions and beliefs, any opposition is easily interpreted as an attack on their honor. At this point, the conflict is no longer a dialogue to seek the truth or find solutions, but turns into a battle to defend the ego. Marcus Aurelius once warned, "Do not let your ego be disturbed by things you cannot control." However, when the ego is threatened, we often forget reason, reacting defensively or stubbornly, which makes the conflict become stuck. Ego leads individuals into the illusion that they are always right, thereby dismissing or ignoring opposing viewpoints. This is often manifested in endless debates, where both sides focus only on proving the other wrong instead of listening. When a person equates their personal opinions with their self-worth, changing their view is seen as a failure or weakness. This fear of damaging one's self-esteem pushes the conflict into a deadlock. Stoicism emphasizes that true wisdom lies in the ability to question one's own perspective. Epictetus taught, "The wise person does not need to be right all the time. They only need to learn from the truth." Asking oneself, "What if I am wrong? Could the other person's perspective be right in some way?" These questions do not weaken us, but show humility and openness, qualities of a strong intellect. Stubbornness often arises from the fear of losing control. When faced with a conflict, individuals tend to cling to their personal viewpoint as a way of asserting their existence. This is particularly evident in power dynamics, such as in the workplace, politics, or even within families, where a person feels that yielding means losing their position. However, Stoicism teaches that true power lies not in always winning arguments, but in controlling oneself and knowing when to yield to maintain harmony. A prime example of ego-hindering conflict resolution can be seen in arguments between friends or family members. When one person feels their opinion has been dismissed, rather than focusing on understanding the other person's perspective, they often repeat their own point, raise their voice, or even bring up past mistakes of the other person to assert themselves. The conversation gradually shifts from its original goal and becomes a battle of egos. Ego not only exists in personal situations, but also serves as the underlying cause of large-scale conflicts throughout history. Wars, ethnic disputes, and religious conflicts are largely rooted in stubbornness toward a single ideology and the fear of admitting that one's viewpoint is not complete. The mindset of either completely right or completely wrong is a manifestation of an untrained ego. So how can we overcome ego in conflict? Stoicism suggests that the first step is practicing humility. Humility does not mean belittling oneself, but acknowledging that human intellect has its limits. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Remember, I am just a human, full of flaws and biases." Rather than trying to prove oneself, remind yourself, "I am seeking the truth, not victory." The next step is to listen actively. Most of us listen to rebut, not to understand. Stoicism teaches that listening is an expression of an open mind and controlled ego. Try to put yourself in the other person's position and ask, why do they hold this view? What fear or belief is driving them? Finally, practice letting go of the need to control. Stoicism emphasizes that not everything is within our control. The views and beliefs of others are beyond our authority. The only thing we can control is our attitude and our reactions. When we understand this, we will be less stubborn about changing others and more focused on improving ourselves. Ego is not the enemy, but if left unchecked, it easily becomes an obstacle to truth and reconciliation. Stoic philosophy teaches that the greatest inner strength lies not in defending the ego, but in the ability to put it down in order to listen, learn, and continuously improve oneself. A strong intellect knows when to speak, when to be silent, and when to let go in order to achieve true peace. Let's come together to support our community. If you are a kind person, please hit the like button on this video and leave some energetic comments to spread positive vibes. Together, we can make a difference. Conflicts become irreconcilable when people stop trying to understand each other. The absence of understanding and empathy causes each side to view the issue solely from their own perspective, forgetting that the other party also has valid opinions, emotions, and reasons. When we no longer make an effort to put ourselves in the other person's shoes, The conflict shifts from an attempt to resolve the issue to a confrontation between two isolated egos. Seneca once said, "To understand others, first understand yourself." Stoic philosophy emphasizes that if we cannot control our own subjective perspective, we cannot genuinely understand others. Lack of understanding stems from the tendency to make hasty judgments based on superficial appearances, rather than seeking to understand the root cause of the issue. We easily conclude that the other person is selfish, stubborn, or irrational without asking what has led them to this viewpoint. What fears or beliefs are influencing them? Instead of confronting the real person, we face the subjective assumptions our minds create. This is especially dangerous in close relationships, where emotional wounds can cause both sides to lose the ability to truly listen. Understanding is not just about hearing words, but about sensing the emotions hidden behind those words. When someone is angry, what lies beneath may be feelings of abandonment, disappointment, or fear. Stoicism reminds us that the emotions of others, even when expressed in extreme ways, are the result of deep personal experiences. Epictetus taught, "Do not be quick to judge when you do not fully understand what others have gone through." A common manifestation of lack of understanding in conflict is personal criticism, rather than focusing on the core issue. Instead of debating a specific opinion, people often fall into attacking the character of the other person. When someone feels personally attacked, their instinct to defend themselves is triggered, pushing them into a state of self-protection through anger or avoidance. As a result, the real issue is not addressed, and the gap between the two sides only widens. Stoicism teaches that to overcome lack of understanding, people need to cultivate humility and self-inquiry. When facing a conflict, ask yourself, what makes the other person feel this way? Have I truly understood them, or am I judging based on my own subjective thoughts? This question not only helps us avoid hasty conclusions, but also creates space for the other person to express their true feelings. Another important principle is practicing active listening. Listening is not merely staying silent while waiting for your turn to speak. It is giving your full attention to the other person's words without judgment or interruption. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Listen as if the other person has something to teach you, for truth is often hidden in things we disagree with." Active listening includes asking questions to clarify the issue and restating what the other person has said to ensure we understand them correctly. Empathy does not mean absolute agreement. Stoicism emphasizes that one can understand and respect the other's viewpoint without abandoning their own beliefs. The key is recognizing that everyone has the right to see the world through their own lens, based on their experiences and cognitive limitations. When we understand this, we become less judgmental and focus more on finding common ground. One of the most powerful methods of practicing empathy Stoics propose is putting yourself in the other person's position. When facing a conflict, try asking yourself, if I were them, with their experiences and perspective, would I act differently? This practice helps us break free from narrow-mindedness and approach the issue from a more comprehensive viewpoint. Lack of understanding and empathy not only prolongs conflict, but also destroys relationships. It creates invisible barriers, making people feel isolated, unheard, and ultimately distant. The solution does not lie in forcing the other party to change, but in expanding both our hearts and minds to truly understand them. When we can set aside our personal emotions and listen with sincerity, conflict gradually fades away, making room for genuine connection. Stoicism teaches us true strength does not lie in defeating the opponent, but in understanding and reconciling with them. Conflicts often become irreconcilable, not because the actual issue is too complex, but because people fail to communicate their thoughts, emotions, and desires clearly. Lack of clear communication leads to misunderstandings, causing both parties to misinterpret each other's intentions and react based on personal assumptions rather than the truth. Epictetus once warned, "Ambiguity in speech is the root of all chaos." A conflict can only be resolved when all parties truly understand the essence of the issue, and that can only be achieved through honest and coherent communication. Lack of clear communication often begins with people being unwilling to express their true emotions. Instead of voicing what bothers them, they choose indirect, vague expressions or even remain silent, hoping the other person will understand. This creates a space filled with dangerous assumptions. One person may think the other is intentionally ignoring or dismissing them, while in reality, it's simply because both sides haven't truly understood each other. Stoic philosophy emphasizes, the wise speak little, but when they speak, they do so clearly, leaving no room for misunderstanding. Another manifestation of poor communication is the use of attacking or blaming language. Instead of focusing on the issue, people often resort to criticizing the other person's character. "You're always irresponsible," or "you never understand me." Such remarks not only hurt, but also prompt the other person to become defensive, escalating the conflict. Marcus Aurelius teaches, "Say only what is necessary, neither more nor less." Clear speech is focused on the core of the issue, avoiding personal attacks or exaggerations. Lack of clear communication also stems from the reluctance to face uncomfortable truths. Sometimes, to avoid hurting the other person's feelings or to preserve the relationship, we choose silence or downplay the issue. However, this only allows the conflict to smolder and grow stronger later on. Stoicism teaches, avoiding the truth is avoiding the solution. An uncomfortable truth, presented honestly and respectfully, is always more valuable than a pleasant lie. A serious consequence of unclear communication is when people begin to create scenarios in their minds, assuming the other person's intentions instead of engaging in direct dialogue. Without transparency in communication, the mind tends to fill the gap with negative assumptions. Maybe he did that on purpose to hurt me, or she's definitely hiding something. These speculations, if not verified, can lead to resentment and break down the relationship. Stoic philosophy offers a powerful solution for improving communication: honesty and simplicity in speech. Epictetus once reminded, "Do not use flowery words to conceal the truth. Say what needs to be said and say it clearly." This means that when facing a conflict, we should express our emotions, needs, and desires openly but respectfully. Instead of saying, "You disappointed me," try saying, "I feel sad because that action made me feel undervalued." Another technique Stoics recommend is asking clarifying questions. Instead of reacting based on assumptions, proactively ask the other person to understand their intention. "What do you mean by that?" Or, "Did this action hurt you?" Asking questions not only shows goodwill, but also helps clarify underlying misunderstandings. Finally, to prevent conflicts from escalating due to poor communication, Stoic philosophy stresses the importance of truly listening. Listening is not just staying silent while waiting for your turn to speak, but genuinely focusing on the content, emotions, and meaning behind the words. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Listen not to reply, but to understand." Lack of clear communication is a subtle but dangerous cause of many conflicts in life. It gives rise to misunderstandings, increases negative emotions, and causes people to grow apart. However, by practicing honest expression, active listening, and avoiding baseless assumptions, we can resolve most conflicts that seem impossible to settle. Clear communication is not only the foundation for conflict resolution, but also the key to building healthy, respectful, and lasting relationships. Conflicts become irreconcilable when people fear confronting uncomfortable truths. This is one of the strongest psychological barriers, as it not only involves objective reality, but also touches upon emotions, beliefs, and the deep-seated ego of each individual. This fear leads people to avoid or distort the truth in order to protect their sense of safety, while the reality is that avoidance only prolongs suffering. Marcus Aurelius once warned, "The truth exists whether we acknowledge it or not. Denying it weakens the mind." Stoic philosophy emphasizes that the truth does not harm us, it is our reaction to it that creates pain. Fear of the truth often stems from equating personal value with perfection. When faced with a mistake, failure, or shortcoming, we feel as if our self-worth is threatened. Rather than accepting that mistakes are natural and part of the growth process, we often choose to deny them or blame circumstances or others. This avoidance does not solve the issue. It only pushes the conflict into a smoldering state, creating underlying fractures in personal and collective relationships. Seneca once emphasized, "The truth, though bitter, is always better than sweet illusions." A clear manifestation of the fear of truth is the delay in confronting conflicts. When a conflict arises, instead of addressing it and resolving it from the start, people often avoid it, hoping the issue will disappear on its own. But conflicts never disappear on their own. They are merely buried, like a fire smoldering under the ashes, ready to flare up more strongly when the opportunity arises. Procrastination not only fails to resolve anything, but also worsens the problem, as misunderstandings, hurt, and negative emotions gradually accumulate. Another cause of the fear of truth is the feeling of losing control. When admitting an unwanted truth, such as a mistake at work or a failure in a relationship, we feel as though we are losing control over our lives. Stoic philosophy teaches that no one can fully control external outcomes. The only thing we can control is our reaction. Epictetus once affirmed, "No one can harm you with the truth. It is your mind that interprets that truth as pain." Understanding that acknowledging reality is not a sign of weakness, but the first step toward regaining control, makes us stronger. Fear of the truth also leads people to construct false narratives to protect themselves. Rather than facing personal responsibility, we easily make excuses. "I did it because I had no other choice," or "I'm right, others just don't understand." This is the mind's way of justifying itself to avoid the feeling of failure, but distances us from reality. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "A strong person does not make excuses. They face the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be." So, how can we overcome the fear of truth? Stoic philosophy advises that the first step is to cultivate inner honesty. This requires being truthful with ourselves, daring to face our weaknesses, mistakes, and personal limitations. Instead of hiding, ask yourself, what am I avoiding? What scares me most in this situation? When these fears are named, they lose their power to control the mind. The next step is to accept the truth as an inherent part of life. Stoicism emphasizes that the truth is neither good nor bad, it simply is. What creates pain or failure is how we interpret the event. When a relationship ends, the reality is not a failure, but simply that two people no longer walk the same path. Confronting the truth calmly allows us to escape the cycle of negative emotions and view the issue with greater clarity. Finally, to overcome the fear of truth, Stoicism teaches the importance of practicing courage and mindfulness. Instead of avoiding, face the truth step by step. This can start with small actions, such as admitting a mistake at work, directly addressing misunderstandings in a relationship, or simply being honest with yourself about your feelings. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite fear still being present. Stoic philosophy reminds us that the fear of facing the truth does not make us weak. It is the avoidance of the truth that makes us lose our inner strength. Confronting the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, is an act of the highest courage and wisdom. The truth may challenge the ego, but it is also the gateway to maturity, freedom, and genuine reconciliation in all conflicts. When we dare to face the truth, we not only overcome conflict, but also transcend the limits of our own minds. Conflict is not the enemy. It is a mirror that reflects the limitations in our perception, emotions, and ego. When emotions overpower reason, the ego obscures the truth, and fear drives us to avoid reality. Conflict becomes an endless battle. Stoic philosophy teaches that the key to resolving any conflict lies not in overpowering the other party or protecting oneself with emotional defenses, but in facing the truth with calmness, honesty, and wisdom. By cultivating the ability to control emotions, letting go of the ego, understanding the other's perspective, communicating clearly, and courageously confronting the truth, we can transform every conflict into an opportunity for growth and deeper connection. Life is filled with clashes, but the choice of how to respond is entirely within your control. Remember the words of Marcus Aurelius, "True strength is the ability to maintain reason in the face of adversity." Thank you for watching this video. Let's support our wonderful community by hitting subscribe and turning on notifications right now. Show everyone that you're living kindly by liking the video and sharing your experiences in the comments. Take action now to spread positive energy.